Welcome back to Hardball. Well, the hard right's CPAC pilgrimage officially ended on Saturday. But if you thought the far right's clown car would end with it, think again, because thanks to Rand Paul and Ted Cruz, it has exploded from the weekend and into today. Paul and Cruz, two red hots angling for the party's nomination in 2016, have officially declared war on each other as of today. It began Sunday with Rand Paul attacking Ted Cruz for tearing into John McCain, Mitt Romney, and Bob Dole, three recent presidential nominees of the Republican Party. Here's Rand Paul.
Everybody has their own style. My style is that I stand for things, and I think people don't question whether I stand for principle, but I don't spend a lot of time trying to drag people down. I've been very complimentary of Mitt Romney. I met him. I think he's a great guy. Can we do things different to get the party bigger? There's always ways we can get bigger, particularly when we don't win, but I don't spend any time sort of trying to criticize others in the party because I realize the party has to be bigger, not smaller.
Well, then it was Cruz's turn. An hour after Rand Paul's comments, Cruz attacked Paul for being soft on foreign policy. Here's Cruz, and notice how he compares himself to, of course, Ronald Reagan.
I don't agree with him on foreign policy. I think U.S. leadership is critical in the world. And I agree with him that we should be very reluctant to deploy military force abroad. But I think there is a vital role, just as Ronald Reagan did. When Ronald Reagan called the Soviet Union an evil empire, when he stood in front of the Brandenburg Gate and said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall, those words changed the course of history. The United States has a responsibility to defend our values.
Which brings us to today. This morning, Rand Paul unloaded on Cruz in the conservative Breitbart News. Here's what Rand Paul wrote. Quote, every Republican likes to think he or she is the next Ronald Reagan. Some would say this do so for the lack of their own ideas and agenda. I will remind anyone who thinks we will win elections by trashing previous Republican nominees or holding oneself out as some paragon in the mold of Reagan that splintering the party is not the route to victory. Well said. Jonathan Capart's an MSNBC contributor and an opinion writer with the Washington Post. And Joy Reid is the host of the Reid Report on MSNBC. Jonathan, let me propose something. I don't think Ronald Reagan in a million years would have attacked Iraq. He was not an adventurous in foreign policy. He was an anti-communist pure and simple. This crowd has made a bet, this crowd led by Sarah Palin and Ted Cruz, that the Republican Party is still in any way proud of what they did in Iraq, their last big foreign policy adventure. I don't think they are proud of it. I think they're quietly embarrassed by it or humiliated or morally embarrassed by the horror of 186,000 dead people because of that policy of invading that country. If they're still proud of that war, Ted Cruz has a chance. If they're quietly embarrassed by this overseas adventurism, put your money on Rand Paul because he's betting, he doesn't say it, they blew it. And they better not blow it again with another country. Your thoughts?
Well, that's actually a very, very interesting question. Taking all those comments from those clips that you showed and others that we've been seeing from CPAC all weekend and boiling it down to what does it mean about when it comes to Iraq. And look, what I think is happening here is, they don't like the guy who's in the White House right now. President Obama, and we've seen it before, President Obama will be doing things that they say he should be doing, but they don't realize he's doing it because they hate him so much. They can't stand anything that he does. And so if the president were doing what Senators Cruz and Paul want him to do on Ukraine, on Syria, on Libya, Benghazi, fill in the blank, they would hate him for it. So I think there's a mix of what you say is whether the party is embarrassed by Iraq or proud of Iraq going into Iraq, or is it added to the combination just a visceral, knee-jerk hatred of the president that no matter what he does,
well, let
they
me
don't
ask
like
you the
it.
question again. The Vietnam War did not go well for the Democrats in the 60s, and they turned against it and changed their policies and became much less a hawkish party, a Scoop Jackson party, a Hubert Humphrey party. Will the Republicans make that turn? Are they making it going into the 2016 election? Are they doubling down on hawkishness? Which is it going to be? I think this is a critical question.
It's a critical question, and this is going to be, I think, the critical fight within the party when it comes to foreign policy. With Rand Paul and Ted Cruz, as you set up, you've got two opposite ends of the foreign policy spectrum within the Republican Party. And Rand Paul doesn't have has the same policy prescriptions as his father, Ron Paul. But here's the difference: Rand Paul is actually a plausible 2016 Republican presidential nominee, and to have him go to battle with Ted Cruz, we will see whether the people who are proud of the Iraq War win out over the people who aren't proud of the Iraq War.
Well said. Let me go to Joy on that one.
No, Chris,
Joy, we're glad to have you. I didn't know I'd get you tonight, but I have you now, and I'm thrilled. So go on.
Well,
Joy Reid, what do you make? Congratulations on your show success, by the way, in the afternoon.
Thank
But what do
you.
you think of this? To me, it's a pivotal point. If you're proud of what I'm older than you guys. I got to tell you, Democrats were very morally chastened by what happened in Vietnam. Most of them. And that explains a lot of the foreign policy of the party today. They don't believe in wars, adventurous wars anymore. They don't think it's good or fun, certainly, to go launch a war in a third world country. What's your thinking?
No, and I think the difference between Ted Cruz and Rand Paul is that Ted Cruz thinks that he is representing the Ronald Reagan wing of the party, but he's really representing more the George W. Bush wing. Ted Cruz is still living in the Republican Party in the 2 years after their defeat in 2008, when they were still very defensive of the George W. Bush sort of legacy and way of doing things. When this idea of the bluster of a George W. Bush, talking really tough and then actually using military force and constantly threatening it, that was the ethos of the Republican Party. But look at what the actual Republican Party has done in Washington. They consented to cutting defense, essentially. If you look at what the sequester was, it included big cuts to defense. Sure, they tried to go back on it. Yeah, they didn't want to, keep them in place forever. But this is a party that is starting to lean much more libertarian. And the thing that people in the party didn't like about Rand Paul's father, is they felt he was way too far into the libertarian extreme, such that he made the use of military force off the table completely. Rand Paul has calibrated his message so that he has just enough of the Paulite, let's be very reluctant to go to war stance, that I think is where more Republicans are than not. He is much more in the Reagan-y mold, where Reagan, talked very tough, but did not use military force, found a peaceful solution to the issues with the Cold War, the Soviet Union. So this is not, I think that Ted Cruz has misread the party, and Rand Paul's strategy of straddling the establishment, giving the kudos to the past folks like Bob Dole, but at the same time being libertarian for the younger people, is much smarter.
Well, we'll see how angry the Republican Party is if they're haters down to their core, to their bone matter. All they do is hate. They'll go with Ted Cruz. If they're trying to build a new libertarian party that's smarter than it had been in the past, they'll probably go to Rand Paul. We'll see. Anyway, thank you, Jonathan Capehart. Joy, it's great to have you on, and congratulations again on your program at 2 in the afternoon. Coming up, Dick Cheney finally shows how to pronounce his name correctly. This is Hardball, the place for politics.